So, what are your thoughts on the benefit of mentors from a psychological perspective? Have you had a mentor? And if so, how has it helped you? How did you find a mentor? And in your experience, work, or research, did you find certain types of personality or those with a certain mental health disorder benefit more from a mentor?
Okay, so look, firstly, this is a great question, and it's capturing a lot of different elements about mentoring that I think are really worth unpacking. So I'll start by saying it's important to understand what it is we're talking about when we talk about mentoring, because of where I'm going to get to and how mentoring is different from some other things. So mentoring is largely about a relationship with a more senior colleague who was providing advice and helping you decode unwritten rules and see the big picture and help you make better long-term decisions. So mentoring is something that has been studied, and the research does show that there are a lot of benefits to mentoring, that employees who get mentoring have more rapid advancement and promotions. They get more positive performance evaluations. They may even have higher earnings. They're more satisfied with their jobs. They have better well-being, and they have less work-family conflict. The mentors benefit. Mentors feel that they're getting more respect from other people. They have their ratings of leadership and job performance tend to be better. They're more satisfied and they're more fulfilled in their jobs. They also, because they have access to people lower down in the organisation, talking to them about the way things are happening and the decisions they have to make, they have better information access and better social feedback than people who in the same sort of positions are not doing mentoring. And there are benefits for organisations as well. You don't have to be outlaying as many costs in terms of recruitment and selection and training, because people tend to stay longer. They contribute more in the organisation. So you've got better retention. You've got maintenance of capability. You've got more transfer of corporate knowledge. But there's an important caveat here, right? Because while these are benefits, the benefits aren't always very strong. And they're relatively weak when you compare them with things like education or training or better work design or support networks. So if mentoring has all of this great potential, why is it that the effects are relatively weak? And there does seem to be a suggestion that there are circumstances where mentoring is very effective and circumstances where it's not really doing a hell of a lot. Mentoring tends to provide less benefits when you have really capable mentors choosing very capable rising stars in an organisation. People that they might prefer to be mentoring, but people who might wind up doing well anyway, even without the mentoring assistance. So mentoring tends to be more effective when it's offered to people who might have more difficulties without it. So this brings me to your question about who benefits most. And there are a lot of different ways that we can approach this. The first thing that came to my mind when I was looking at this is, well, who's likely to have the most difficulty handling internal politics, decoding unwritten rules or expectations, making complex career decisions? So I was thinking, well, one particular group of people who might not have the same sort of implicit knowledge about organisations and how they work and how the politics runs might be people who come from different cultures. They have certain expectations and their assumptions about what certain messaging might mean might not match up, and so they might benefit from a mentor more than somebody who is really quite familiar with those sort of unwritten rules. People of neurodivergence, people perhaps on the autism spectrum, people with ADHD, these are also people who maybe struggle with decoding unwritten rules, trying to interpret internal politics, making decisions about careers at the same time that they're dealing with a task that's right in front of them. I speak as somebody who is somewhat neurospicy himself. That is the sort of situation in which someone has a lot of potential benefit from someone walking them through. Okay, well, when someone said that, they didn't really mean it that way. and that can be very helpful. But if you want to talk about personality, or if you want to talk about mental health conditions, yes, people who are more introverted and more socially anxious can benefit, but they particularly benefit from an organisation that is creating a structured kind of mentoring program, because not only might they sort of struggle to ask questions about, what's the right thing to do, or how do I go about doing that, they're also the sort of people who might be struggling to go up to a mentor and to ask, and to hassle them for meeting times and for things like that. So a structured program is likely to provide that sort of benefit. A question that is sometimes asked in relation to personality and mentoring is, does it matter if my mentor and I have quite different personalities? It might have personalities clash. While that can happen, it tends to be the case that personality differences are much less likely to cause problems than differences in values. In fact, some of the most common problems come from where there are different values or very different assumptions about the nature of the mentorship relationship, how often people will meet, for how long, what people are expecting of one another. So it's really important that when you're trying to set up a mentoring relationship, that you have, you start off with a clear and explicit discussion of what you see the process might work like, and what sort of expectations you have, and try and hash out an agreement around those sort of things. A mentor can also sometimes provide value in terms of introductions to important people, or advocacy on your behalf. But if that's really the focus, if it's really about, I'm looking for somebody who can help me get the right sort of connections, or who can sort of talk about my case when I'm going up for promotion, that's really a type of relationship called a sponsor, having a sponsor in the organisation. And that's also potentially useful, but sort of works in different ways. My own experience with mentoring, I come from an academic background. I am a bit introverted, a bit socially anxious, and as I mentioned, I have a bit of neurodivergence about me. And very early in my career, I had a contract job with a mentor who was encouraging me to ask him questions like, am I spending too much time on this? Am I not spending enough time on that? How would the boss react if I asked for these things? And that was a big help. And then when I shifted job, I was assigned a mentor where we had a real values misfit. And then, he moved on, and I approached another potential mentor who was very keen, but then almost immediately got a job in another country. And so I thought, oh, look, it's all too much trouble. And then I had several years where I made a number of very poor decisions that a mentor would have talked me out of. So I can very much encourage seeking out and developing a relationship with a mentor, particularly early in the career. What I do now is a little bit different. I have peers that I catch up with for peer mentoring. In psychology, we call that peer supervision. And that's something that's not often discussed when you're reading up about mentoring. You don't need to necessarily find someone who is several levels above you to be talking about your challenges and decisions with, who might be able to give you some advice. And the more experience you have, the less important it is that the person who is sort of helping you bounce ideas around is coming from somewhere very senior. So peer mentors can be useful at any stage of your career, and they're a good way to extend your personal network as well.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Ben. I think that's like really interesting insight, especially about joining a peer, like bouncing off your peers. I think networking and being involved in all those industry events would be really helpful, just to understand what everyone else is, experiencing, and how you can kind of improve your skills, like you said, if you have a skills deficit. mentoring can be really important to get you through that gap and bridge the gap and get to the next stage. I just wanted to ask Shane, have you had a mentor before, or have you sought out mentors in the creative industry? Would love to hear your
Uh,
experience.
yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes I haven't necessarily gone and asked people, "Will you be my mentor?" But I kind of see them as a mentor. And Ben, you're right. Like early on in my career, there's a lot of people when I started in South Africa that I look to them as mentors. And typically, we are word polar opposites. So from a age, values, culture, things like that. But you admire something about them, and you see you want a bit of that, whether it's their creative leadership skills, the creative industry, or the way they carry themselves, or the way they think logically. Or there's been a lot of mentors that I have learned from along the way. Some not so good, some better than others, and I think that the people that you don't really want to model yourself after, you learn from them as well, because then when you get to a stage where you can have an influence over someone, you don't model those behaviors. So I think the good experiences and the bad experiences help model yourself to be a great mentor. And something that I often tell young creatives getting into the industry is when you're looking for a job, don't necessarily look at the company or the business and the name of them, that agency or that design consultancy or whatever. Look at the people that you'll be working under, because that person or those people will be your mentors. And if you find a place where you respect the people and you learn from them, that's more important than the name on the door or the company on your CV. So I think mentorship is hugely important. There was a stage in my career where I didn't have a mentor, and you feel lost sometimes because you just want someone to reach out and speak to and help you with your career. Or if there's even if you're going through symptoms of we chatted earlier about burnout, a mentor will help. They can help you find the resources, or just someone to bounce things off of, and someone who's maybe gone through those experiences. So yes, finding a mentor earlier on is a really integral part of the experience and the growth for an individual. Whether you ask that person, will you be a mentor, or you just ease into it where you just model yourself after them. Yes, I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, totally. Great advice. Thanks, guys.